So,
So?
what do you do in your free time?
Oh, I play video games.
Ooh,
The owner of this channel strongly advises against admitting you're a gamer on your first date.
okay. So you're a gamer, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Seriously, you're not gonna get this far.
So, what's your favorite video game?
This question always throws me for a loop. Inevitably in a conversation someone's gonna ask for your favorite food, movie, show and or video game, and am I the only person who has trouble coming up with one ultimate answer for the rest of my life? I mean realistically only for the rest of the conversation, but what if you never see that person again? They're gonna be stuck with that opinion from you for the rest of their lives, and what if they always judge you for it? They're gonna go to other people and be like, hey, have you heard? That's his favorite video game, isn't that kind of ass? Like, there's a lot of layers to this. How would I even decide that? Is it the game I have most of my time in? The game I have the best memories with? The game I would play if I could only play one for the rest of my life? Yeah, I'm making this more difficult than it really needs to be, but point is, it's difficult for me. Now, you read the title of the video, so you're probably thinking, you're gonna say that your favorite video game is also the perfect one. But that's not where I'm going. So I probably need to explain a little. What is perfection? Let's try not to get too philosophical here, okay? That might be a topic for its own video, but what would I consider perfect? Because in the end, perfection is kind of just that. An opinion. It needs to be an opinion, because the idea of perfection is something without flaws. In turn, that would require literally everyone to enjoy it, and in a sense, that will lead to some people not enjoying it. This is getting confusing. I kind of just want to say that perfection is an opinion and not really an objective matter. So when I will speak of the perfect video game, you will most likely disagree and probably should disagree. I simply want to illustrate why I think this game that I'm going to talk about is perfect. There's not a single flaw in it. I will never call it my favorite video game, but I couldn't call a single thing about it not great. And that game is Portal 2. Since there's a very obvious number in the title, you can probably guess that this isn't the first game in the franchise. It's the last one though. It's a game made by Valve after all. And since this video is dealing with the second part, it makes sense to at least look at the first one for a little bit. Portal was released in October 2007, which means next year Portal is no longer at risk of getting groomed by Minecraft YouTubers. Congratulations. The developer Valve is known for small indie classics like Half-Life, Team Fortress, and Team Fortress 2, and the entirety of Steam. So Valve has always kind of been a company shooting for the stars, and with Portal they would not make an exception. I think even from today's standpoint, Portal is genuinely an impressive game. Sure, it doesn't have the same special feeling that it had back in the day, now that we have grand games that use portals like these with ease and have revolutionized this concept. But the game is still impressive. The way some of these puzzles are constructed is genuinely pretty clever and still would be fun even to this day. But this is 2007. It's hard to really write down how impressive this was. 2007, dude, this is when Mario Galaxy came out. BioShock, the first Crisis, what other games? Like, oh my god. In general, this was kind of around when games started doing more, stuff. The hardware allowed for more and more ambitious projects, and it reflects in the lineup of games around that time. And yet, you gotta admit that it's really difficult to compare Valve to a corporation like Nintendo or EA. I mean, Valve was essentially pretty small still, with Team Fortress 2 and Half-Life 2 coming out in the same year, which, to be fair, are probably much bigger than Portal ever was. TF2 is still played to this day. Seems like it's a trend that my videos age badly before they even come out, huh? And Half-Life will probably never die as the game with the most nerve-wracking ending in all of history. Point is, these two games are most notable for Valve's success, aside from Steam. So Portal didn't have a safe upbringing. Trying to be original is a gamble, as you often sacrifice a safe path, especially puzzle games. I mean, do you know anyone who has a favorite puzzle game from before Portal came out? Puzzle games are often slow and sort of calming. You sit down and challenge your brain for a little. Sure, there's often a story involved which can get you immersed, but back then, you can Google what kind of games came out that are puzzle related in 2007 and before that. But the list is not impressive. Yeah, nowadays you have Superliminal, We Were Here Together, Viewfinder, fucking throw in the Untitled Goose Game for all I care. I'm not trying to say that these games were inspired by Portal, but I'm not saying I'm not. Portal, yeah, is a pretty normal puzzle game, but it tried to do something much bigger than just be fun to figure things out. I'm no expert at puzzle games, but finding such a neat combination between story and puzzle progression before Portal is impossible? I'm just provoking that some massive nerd puts a game into my comments that's older than my mom, but I'm willing to take that risk for the sake of hyperboles. Solving the puzzle is one of the rewards, yeah, but the much bigger reward is the progression and story. The Professor Layton games that came out essentially around that time have a similar system, but the puzzles are always separate mini-games. Sometimes the problem will actually have to do with what's going on, but they're separate little games. In Portal, it's one long puzzle, separated by chambers. Yes, there are different elements to it, but it will always require the main gimmick of the game. And the story in this game is actually really well done. I would argue it's almost the main appeal of it all. It uses environmental clues, voice acting that's phenomenal, psychological... You know what, why don't we just go through it together?
Hello, and again, welcome to the Aperture Science Computer Aided Enrichment Center.
The start of the game alone feels so liminal. That's a term that got pretty popular with stuff like the Backrooms somehow becoming popular again. You wake up and it just feels like you're in a scary kind of dream. Kind of ironic, because, you're waking up. You're listening to this kind of charming, but mostly really off-putting music. Portal has been so ahead of the game, y'all. Nowadays, there's an abundance of analog horror, and you will notice that they always have these softly distorted classic pieces that your grandma would normally swing her really weak legs to. You go, grandma! But when uncertainty creeps in on you and you aren't fully sure what's behind the next door, this music just feels off. Especially when it's slightly distorted as if it was coming out of a radio. Because it's coming out of a radio. It's an iconic start that immediately makes you feel uneasy. You see these windows, and in combination with being trapped inside this glass cage, you feel like an animal. And it's probably worse that behind these glass windows you can see offices, and nobody's there. Nobody's there where people should be, and all you have to know that you aren't alone is...
Your specimen has been processed, and we are now ready to begin the test proper.
In this game, this voice will almost only be the only voice we'll ever hear. Despite how clearly not human this voice sounds, it has a weird sort of comfort hearing GLaDOS. She gives us a warning on what not to do, and immediately we get a taste of the humor in this game.
Please refrain from... Turn back.
Portal and Portal 2 have an amazing sense of humor that's not only timeless, but somehow aged better. It's sort of random, sometimes a little meta, but more often than not just straight up funny. The voice actress for GLaDOS is doing fantastic, and her dry delivery of some of these lines works so well.
These intradimensional gates have proven to be completely safe. The device, however, has not.
She points us to a countdown, and that countdown also tells us that this probably isn't an automated message, but actually an AI watching us.
The portal will open in 3, 2, 1.
I want to point out how genius this is, by the way. People like to call the start of the first Mario level genius. The way you jump over the Goomba and you're immediately getting a coin for it. When you jump against that little question block that the mushroom comes out and you can't ever jump over it, so you're forced to take the power up and understand that there's good mushrooms and bad mushrooms. It is pretty smart. Portal doesn't do something mind-blowingly smart here, but it's just the small things that matter so much. You can't ever look down to see your feet or whatever, but you immediately see yourself from an outside perspective. This doesn't matter much, but I just love this attention to detail. You're immediately aware of who you are and how these portals work. And talking about it, it also immediately tells you a progression in the form of these level signs. Yeah man, this kicks absolute ass. Obviously it's not always possible, but I love when games find smart ways to explain the game without showing you a tutorial. The door opens and you see a fat red button that you can obviously walk on, which in turn lights up the little dots here and open the door. So many things are immediately explained. You figure out you can follow the line to the door to see what opens, and when you inevitably walk off, you can figure out that something needs to hold down these buttons to keep them activated. It would have been really useless to show a box saying these things, because you as a player can figure that stuff out like immediately. All it tells you is the controls and that you can't bring items with you in the next chamber. The game teaches you the basics in the first chamber, and next one you're already annoyed. You have to wait for these cycles to be in the right spot, which is very boring, and therefore it makes you want to create these portals for yourself as soon as possible. The feeling of satisfaction is so great when you can finally make your own portals, and it's only because in previous chambers that you couldn't. So now we have a gun that makes holes, which is kind of every gun, but this one creates these portals, or well, it can make the blue portals. The orange ones are still fixed in place, so the player can get used to placing a portal. I mean, again, this was a completely new concept, so the player needed to understand what the fuck they're doing. This is also when the computer starts to get a little bit aggressive on us. It says that in the following chamber you will be entirely on your own, but then later confirms it wasn't just a lie, but enhancing the truth. And when promising to stop doing this, it cuts off.
As part of a required test protocol, we will stop enhancing the truth in 3, 2.
As I mentioned, this computer is GLaDOS, and even though she, yes, I won't call the robot it, only attains her iconic look in the second game, she is easily the best part of this game. Because why is it the only voice keeping you company? Where is everybody else? If you want answers, play the game further, or just watch the rest of the video.
Any contact with the chamber floor will result in an unsatisfactory mark on your official testing record, followed by death. Good luck.
Do you hear that? That's why we don't trust her. It's almost like you can hear a little smirk when she wishes you good luck. The voice actress Ellen McLean is doing amazing and has been featured in TF2 as the announcer. Ironically enough, she also voices one of Tempbot voices in Bee and Puppycat with the line,
I'm supposed to be sleeping all day, but we tried to go play video games and...
Oh, I have a video game job for you. Maybe there will be cake.
which is an amazing reference, and also voices Combine Overwatch in Half-Life 2. I have a confession to make. I have never played any of the Half-Life games, but I might eventually for a video. But anyway, her voice acting is fucking fantastic and definitely is a huge part in why I love this game. GLaDOS always compliments you, but it feels so hollow. Like there's no truth behind those words. You learned about momentum, and I will iterate that I still think this is really impressive and will make for really fun puzzles. And GLaDOS explains it so that even the Subway Surfer kids can fully understand it.
Speedy thing goes in, speedy thing comes out.
I will say, this is where the game is too slow for my personal liking. It's really short, like you can finish this in 2 hours, and half the chambers you beat without the second portal gun. If it was 1 or 2 chambers, it would have been fine, but you're on chamber 11 and still don't have a way to create that second portal yourself. So anyway, chamber 11 you get the second portal gun. I say second gun because it looks like that, but it's just one gun which you can shoot with mouse 1 and 2. This is also when we figure out that this gun is apparently so valuable that it is worth more than all the organs in the town Shell is coming from. Or rather,
Of everyone in.
Subject hometown, yeah.
this is interesting. Clearly the AI is built with the intent to fuck with the test subject as much as possible. They don't know if the gun actually is worth more than anybody's organs, indicated by how they would have inserted any town. But this is also another instance where it's clear that, despite clearly following our progress, the AI doesn't know anything about us. Our name is unknown by it, the hometown, the parents' names, and for some reason we are a blank slate. The game will keep jumping between really funny and really serious and do it perfectly.
Get ready to fling yourself. Fling into space.
And serious it can be. GLaDOS advises to passing out when you're too thirsty, as someone will come and revive you. But judging from the empty windows and a lack of any human soul, I doubt that will happen. However, it's also kind of funny because GLaDOS kind of insinuates that revival is easier or cheaper than just giving you water. Maybe it's both. But this is also when GLaDOS starts sounding more human.
When the testing is over, you will be missed.
This is, by the way, also when I found out Shell isn't technically mute. Well, I kind of already knew that, but she makes noises in this video game. What the fuck? Taking damage made her make a noise, which means she's just completely silent because she doesn't want to speak. And I think that's based. GLaDOS promises cake and grief counseling, and if you've been around during 2012, you probably know what's up with the cake. We solve more chambers that get a little more challenging, but are pretty easy still, and in chamber 16, we first make contact with these little fellas. The turrets are deadly, but have the object permanence of Wheatley voice. They're also voiced by the same voice actors for GLaDOS, so this woman is absolutely amazing. Oh, and amazing, remember when I told you about the Mario level? We somehow have this phenomenon again. We enter to see a turret from behind, while a further away turret is shooting continuously at us. That teaches us so many things. We can attack turrets from behind by picking them up. The turrets can see us through glass and will shoot without ever needing to reload. However, the glass is bulletproof and will protect us from the bullets. All of this is taught to us just without anyone saying anything or a window popping up, nothing. After yeeting the first turret over, we are also confronted with this red dot showing us a rough point of view. This level design here is just... I love these little guys. They're so sweet and bullety. And then a handprint. A human handprint. Some of the boxes we're holding open something. Some sort of hideout. And entering it lets us see a first glimpse behind the scenes. Someone was here begging for help. And there's also a warning. Have my Reddit gold, please. Ugh, the infamous line that was all over the internet. The cake is a lie is such an iconic internet meme that as soon as cake is mentioned, you just know something's up nowadays. But it is so off for a reason. The cake is a lie. The AI is lying. We need to do something. When you first play this without ever knowing of this line, this is really chilling. It's the first indirect contact with another human being, and it's a warning. It's such a beautiful, perfect little scene. Perfectly executed and very much deserving of its internet fame.
This is, by the way, a good example of a meme line not necessarily being funny, but just becoming popular because of how well it's written.
So much so that it is still getting referenced in even modern media. We find a lot of creative ways to defeat the turrets, upon which we are reminded that Android Hell apparently exists. That's a can of worms I'm not even daring to open. Though it's only here to make us feel bad about killing these turrets.
No hard feelings.
Despite that, we get rewarded with the best character in the franchise, the companion cube. Have another Reddit gold, stranger. This lovely little fella has amazing lines. Voice acted by... They have such amazing lines that really only work because of their delivery.
The Enrichment Center reminds you that the weighted companion cube will never threaten to stab you and, in fact, cannot speak.
This is a weird line to me because the cube clearly is talking, but I guess it just serves to make the player feel less attached to the cube. Having a talking cube in the game is a little weird, but when the lines are that great, I guess I can ignore it. We can enter another secret little hideout where it's revealed that whoever lived in these vaults also has an obsession with the cube. Maybe that's why GLaDOS wants us to disregard the cube's advice. And they lived off milk and beans for who knows how long, which honestly is just your average British breakfast. To proceed, GLaDOS needs us to incinerate the companion cube. There's no way of proceeding without him, so despite how awful it feels, we need to say goodbye for now. Jokes aside though, this is foul. GLaDOS not only takes the cube away from us, but also congratulates us for giving away the only character that could give us comfort. Clearly the AI is growing more and more sinister as we proceed. Especially when she slips up and says that we will be baked for cake.
The experiment is nearing its conclusion. The Enrichment Center is required to remind you that you will be baked, and then there will be cake.
We solve more puzzles until the final chamber. The cake is a lie. Okay, let's not do this again. GLaDOS, and this will be a shocker, is trying to kill us by forcing us into a fiery chamber. Germany! We can luckily portal our way out, and this starts what feels like the coolest sequence in the entire game. We have to run from GLaDOS, who can only feel us inside the facility, while maneuvering these halls with our portal gun. We had been stuck in these monotone blank rooms with the insanity-inducing white walls, always watched by the cameras and forced to feel isolated like a pet in a cage. And now, we can hear GLaDOS fail to find us. The cameras are gone, and we are straight up walking through the facility. We are breaking out, and we have a clear target in mind. We walk through these offices that allude to the fact that Portal and Half-Life play in the same universe. Black Mesa is some sort of industry in Half-Life, and it rivals Aperture Science. I don't know what Black Mesa does, but I'll play the games at some point. For now, I need to make sure that I translate how cool this is. You're walking through the company and finally see the other side. which also just confirms nobody's here. Nobody but you and the AI are stuck in this facility, and that means there's only one barrier between you and freedom. This part is also where GLaDOS' humor and her voice acting becomes absolute peak.
Remember when the platform was sliding into the fire pit and I said goodbye? And you were like, don't worry. And then I was all, we pretended we were going to murder you. That was great.
This last section essentially is a compilation of all we learned through the game. Momentum, turrets, going through these blocked off exits. It is really great while also feeling so rewarding. You're breaking out and it feels like it. It's perfect. I've also never watched The Boys. It's angering GLaDOS severely. While before she went through some sort of bargaining, now she's getting really mad. It's the first time we've seen her show emotions that is that strong. It's really cool. And then, with a really impressive view that makes me want to explore the area, there she is, hanging from the ceiling with wires everywhere. The entire boss fight is kinda whatever, to be fair. It's a puzzle game and GLaDOS keeps shooting these rockets at you, which you have to portal back to her. The angle is sometimes a little awkward, and other than that, you have really only the time where there could be a problem. It's nothing big. Whenever you hit her with a rocket, she drops one of these cores, which you then have to drop into the furnace. Her voice gets really human the more cores you throw away, which is scary, but also so cool. It's weird seeing this character who was once so stoic lose herself to an artificial madness.
You think you're doing some damage?
2 plus 2 is...
In base 4, I'm fine.
I'll repeat myself here, but the voice actress is so good. Interestingly enough, GLaDOS alludes to the outside world being completely fucked, which, yeah, could be a bluff, but since this is also the Half-Life world, who knows? Burning all the cores opens up the lab and sucks us towards the real world. This is, by the way, when we actually learned that her name is GLaDOS and not the AI, but calling her the AI throughout the entire video was not only really fucking annoying, but also kinda dumb. So forgive me for spoiling the 17-year-old game with this entire video, technically. Just when we reach the outside and are still passed out, something drags us off and prevents us from being a free woman, and I mean, yeah, this is the second most popular thing from this game, so play it.
This was a triumph. I'm making a note here. Huge success.
I'm not gonna play the whole song because I think that gets you in trouble anyway. In any case, you know the song, it's so good, and I encourage you to play the game just for that, or just watch a video of the credits after you finish this one. The final screen is actually what we were promised. A cake plus the companion cube waiting for us. The end. The title screen now changes, and what can I say? This game is fantastic. Really slow at the start, but with about 3 hours of gameplay and these amazing moments, plus the perfect way of teaching the player how to play, it's pretty close to being perfect. It is worth noting that all these levels also have a radio that you can find and then bring to a very specific point in the game that makes them do some sort of Morse code, which is really just an annoying hassle. Truth be told, I had no idea this was a thing and kind of accidentally found out about it when I just carried it around. These radios were part of a huge ARG to promote Portal 2, and while ARGs are almost common nowadays and everyone does it and everyone has their own ARG and we all want to be featured on MadPad's Theory, it's not MadPad anymore. It still hurts. This was 2010. That's 14 years ago. The game was so ahead of its time, it's actually crazy. It was a really long journey stretching over the Game Choice Awards, E3 and all of summer, in which players could get a good look at some concept art and other teasers. This entire ARG is really interesting and I suggest reading up on it on your own, as talking about it now will just delay me talking about Portal 2 and I just want to talk about Portal 2. Yeah, the ARG is really interesting, cool project, doesn't really have anything to do with Portal 2 but kind of does. Read up on it, it doesn't matter. Finally. So how do you top this? How do you become the perfect video game? Well, the wait finally is at its end. Let's talk about Portal 2 and why it's perfect. Finally! Portal 2 was released in 2011, which means it's now 13 years old. I'm losing myself. So let's talk sequels. Once again, probably a topic for a video on its own, but I think it's important to at least touch on the topic here. A sequel, in my humble opinion, shouldn't make the player feel estranged. Usually you have played the first game and kind of expect something similar from the sequel. However, I also don't want the same game again, so it needs to be different enough. How did Portal 2 tackle this issue? Well, I mean, you can probably guess. It did it fucking amazing. It essentially expanded on everything without changing what it originally made so unique and amazing. The first game introduced the concept and the world, and the second game made it its purpose to show off how much bigger everything is. More characters, way more environments, more mechanics, but keeping it to 2 portals to keep it familiar enough. I mean, just put the 2 games next to each other and you can clearly tell there was more budget for the sequel. And they used it. Portal in itself played it safe. I know you're gonna call me a fucking idiot because earlier I told you it was really risky, but hear me out on this. The idea itself to make a puzzle game based on a story with the wacky ideas of Portal, yeah, that was a risk. But the general game played it safe. It takes a bit until you can fire a portal. It takes basically half the game to fire the second one. The game is only 3 hours long if you don't know what you're doing, and there's not much else to it. The story's really cool, the principle is outstanding, but you know, in itself, it's not much else. Portal 2's gameplay is a lot better without being much different. And that's simply because more things happen in a shorter time while the game itself is much longer. The pacing is much better, the world looks much nicer, the humor is literally perfect, and the story, oh my god, this story. I know it's normally not good for a YouTuber with the watch time and whatnot, but if you haven't played Portal 2 yet, bookmark this video or just close it if you didn't have a good time yet, I don't care, and play Portal 2. Please, it's like maybe 7 hours, maybe 8, I don't know how long I took. Just please play the game. If you're still here, hi, let's talk about Portal 2. The story picks up where we left off. We are still Chell, and after our passed out body got dragged away to a bedroom deep inside the facility, don't question how we got here, just accept it. We can hear a voice. Oh god.
Good morning. You have been in suspension for 50 days. In compliance with state and federal regulations, all testing candidates in the Aperture Science Extended Relaxation Center must be revived periodically for a mandatory physical and mental wellness exercise.
The room itself is quite nice. There's nice sunlight coming through the window, and the art is very stareable. The voice, for once, is non-murderous, and it tells us to eep. And, like a normal person would, we eep.
Good morning. You have been in suspension for 99999.
We either experience the best sleep a human could ever have, or we wake up with the fattest headache of mankind. Chell doesn't speak, so I just assume it's the second part. We wake up after 9999, hopefully minutes. This has turned into Fallout rather quick. The room is completely worn down. The windows reveal that there's no real sunlight and probably never was. The sudden wake up is immediately causing a really uncomfortable feeling. Sure, before you were strange, and you could see the windows were empty and you were just on your own, but now the setting has shifted from empty to abandoned. You call me an idiot and say that's the same, but there's a difference. Also, I'm not an idiot. In the first game, it seemed like all the people were suddenly sucked away. I don't know, killed off. Just as if like Thanos snapped. Here you can tell people didn't suddenly vanish. No, people just left you. And that can be scarier. Because it tells us that nobody is coming back. You being alive is something nobody expects. It has its own scary flair that I really like. We hear another voice speaking to us. Last time when we woke up, we didn't really have anyone to talk to. Sure, we are now hearing this automated voice, just like in the first game, but the voice we take in right now is, well, not necessarily human, but certainly more active.
Are you going to open this door? Because it's fairly urgent.
This easily excitable goofball is Wheatley, the ADHD core. That's not his actual name, but I mean, this guy gives me the fattest ADHD vibes I've ever seen. He's voiced by Stephen Merchant in his first and only voice acting role in a video game. Yeah, he voiced in TF2 and Lego Dimensions, but it was to voice Wheatley, so I wouldn't count it. Also, yeah, there's a portal world in Lego Dimensions. It's really surreal seeing words like DC and Lord of the Rings and whatnot, and then there's just Portal there. It's super cool, but just what? There's, by the way, an interview out with Stephen Merchant where he talks about Portal 2 and that voicing in the video game was somehow the hardest thing he's ever done in his career.
One of the hardest things I've done, actually, bizarrely, because with a video game, if you do an animated movie, you show up and they give you the lines and you say them, and you don't have to put makeup on or anything like that, and you just read the lines. But with a video game, you have to do lines for every possible avenue that the character might go down, right? So you've got to do lines for when the person playing the game is incompetent and is just sort of walking into a wall and can't seem to figure out how to turn the character around and walk another direction. And you've just got to stop walking into the wall or whatever it might be.
Anyway, this little fella is probably the best part next to GLaDOS. I wish AI was used like this just to make silly guys. Well, silly guys and computer setup would absolutely fuck. No, but for real, these two carry so much charm and I don't know how they did it. Wheatley could maybe be seen as annoying, but I couldn't even agree with that, like, in the slightest, and if you think so, then you are really mean, dude. I don't think there's a single joke from him that I think isn't funny. The accent is charming, his somewhat dumb attitude feels funny, but like, authentic somehow. This character feels so alive, which, I mean, yeah, is kind of weird since it's not really alive. I mean, it's a robot, little cube. What? This is not a cube, what am I doing? Often you get dialogue for video games that just doesn't feel authentic in the slightest whatsoever.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
But Wheatley feels genuinely like a guy that is just a small cog inside this huge facility. It's incredible how well this game is written, to the point where I always have to force myself not to listen to all the possible voice lines he might have. Because let me tell you, this guy could be a perfect YouTuber, because he has so much to talk about and there's so little content in it. He's the yapper of the century. Wheatley is our last beacon of hope, because right now we have absolutely no more orientation. Who knows how long we actually slept. GLaDOS is dead and the voice is responding only when we do what it told us, but it doesn't give us any feedback. It probably is more of an automated response rather than an artificial intelligence program, so let's cling to this little goober. Oh well, maybe not. Wheatley sadly continues the trend of artificial voices being bad news. Just that this time Wheatley doesn't actually want to kill us, but he tries. This is when the game really wants us to know that Portal 1 was just a stepstone. It will always get my blood pumping to be carried by Wheatley in this little room while seeing the walls break off, able to stare into the rest of the facility, the music kicking in, and hearing Wheatley desperately appeal to us getting where we need to be. In this scene, Wheatley tells us that there was a program that was supposed to wake up every test subject. You just got struck by a miracle, I suppose. Or maybe there's more behind it. In any case, him saying that immediately gets confirmed once the walls break off and you can see all the other chambers and modules that other test subjects must have lived in. In some of them you can peek into, others you can only see from the outside. You can see others far in the distance, making this facility feel so big. The end of the first game already made the place feel pretty big, but this is a whole new level and we are only in the beginning. The music here as well, by the way. Oh my god, the music.
Just gotta get through here. Okay, I just gotta concentrate. And whose fault do you think it's gonna be when the management comes down here and finds 10,000 flipping vegetables? Alright, so now I hear that one.
Portal 2's soundtrack is fucking amazing. Oh, it gets my blood pumping.
Good news. That is not a docking station. So there's one mystery solved. I'm going to attempt a manual override on this wall. Could get a bit technical. Hold on. Almost there. Remember, you're looking for a gun that makes holes. Not bullet holes. But don't worry, you'll figure it out. Seriously, do hold on this time.
And if the little comment about searching for a gun that makes holes sound familiar to you, yes, I did steal that. And no, I am not ashamed. But yeah, this entire thing is not even a cutscene. It's all made in-game. You can still walk around, which makes you feel like you're right in there. It just makes the voices in my head quieter because I'm so invested in that sentence did not feel mentally sane. The scenery continues to be astounding. I mean, I love these settings, so I'm biased here, but the idea of like a facility broken down and nature having reclaimed it is always cool. Items are cleared from these elevator tubes to make way, and every time you somewhat expect the elevator to just break and crash down. This setting just activates my need to explore. I want to see all the little corners that broke down, see these plants, and just look at all the abandoned offices and shit. super interesting, and the game does a wonderful job at making this feel believable. You sometimes find yourself a little estranged by games that have conveniently placed items just at the right height or the perfect angle for you to reach, and while Portal 2 does have that feelings towards the end a little, for the most part the environment feels believable and real. The way everything has crumbled together in a way for you to advance just feels realistic. And I'm not even a bad yellow paint syndrome hater. I think that's really dumb. I never found myself broken out of the experience when there's like yellow paint or anything marked, and I'm pretty sure it just took a lot of headache away from game developers. But this starting bit did it without it, and I love it a lot. The game starts the same way the first one did. Yeah, I will say this part maybe feels a little slow when you have played Portal 1. Again, someday in the future I might make a video about sequels, but here I think it's worth noting that Portal 2 does sort of require you to have played the first game. The story doesn't fully work, but it's also not impossible to understand what's going on when you just play Portal 2. So in case you're one of those readers that sees a number in the title and still just walk right into it without ever looking up if you need to have played the first game, here's your tutorial. They even copied a shot where you can immediately see yourself from an outsider's perspective. We can see that Shell has changed from the orange jumpsuit into a white top with orange pants and finally put some boots on, though I do wonder where that orange jumpsuit just went. I assume the robot just stripped her, which is a little weird. That little robot has probably violated a lot of rights. You press some buttons and the automated messages weirdly enough allude to society having collapsed, and this place is sort of keeping us from whatever happened out there. This has turned into Danganronpa really fast, huh? The little videos on the side are also anything but reassuring that everything is okay. We reunite with Wheatley, and after falling through the floor, we see a compilation of beautiful drawings on the wall. From what we see here, we can piece together a rough story drawn by someone who must have witnessed our actions from the first game. The first drawing depicts a group of scientists working on what seems to be one massive computer with a familiar shape. And if this wasn't already ringing some bells, the next painting probably tells us all we need to know. It depicts a woman seemingly bursting out of the build machine and killing the scientists that created her. The most important part of this image is the little stick man there. Instead of being attacked and killed, it seems to be keeping its distance and worshipping the companion cube. This person must also have seen us in the first game clashing with GLaDOS and coming out as successful. The image depicts us as ascending through the ceiling after the defeat of the evil AI. Why we rose through the ceiling, I still don't really know, but it was a cool fucking moment, so it's fine. After this happened, the person scribbling these paintings got the portal gun for themselves, and the last image seems to be a portrait of the sleeping Chell that was dragged back into the facility. But if everyone has either abandoned the facility or got killed in it, who is Orange Guy? That turned into FNAF real quick. No, we're not doing this. One MadPad reference was enough for one video. I mean, it can be that deep. So there's someone who had been around the facility, someone who's obsessed with the companion cube, and someone who was around when Chell was fighting GLaDOS. We continue the chambers, and the starting puzzles actually mirror those of the first one. It seems all the testing courses feature the same tutorial, though this one is without snarky GLaDOS. It still has a funny robo voice, so that's good.
This next test is very dangerous. To help you remain tranquil in the face of almost certain death, smooth jazz will be deployed in 3, 2, 1.
The humor of this game is, again, timeless. Portal was funny, but Portal 2 definitely steps it up. You just always have something to smile about, and it never really gets boring like at all. Each chamber is equipped with a funny voice line, and that is honestly reward enough for me.
Great work. Because this message is pre-recorded, any observations related to your performance are speculation on our part. Please disregard any undeserved compliments.
But my favorite voice lines return when we reunite with Wheatley. He pops himself off a rail, and after we catch him, we plug him into a wall that lets him do some hacking. It went pretty well, so surely this will be a streak, right? Wheatley lets us know that he doesn't actually know who killed GLaDOS. He only knows it was a human, which, I mean, isn't wrong, you know. After looking at the window, we can certainly recognize this outside area. Beyond this tunnel and beyond this door is her room. Wheatley is as scared as we all should be, but luckily Chell knows exactly that GLaDOS isn't necessarily alive right now. We walk over the remains of her, find a way deeper down, and after failing to find an escape pod, we plug in Wheatley again to let him hack his way into the facility. He quotes
God, he's quoting God,
which is always such a funny curveball, and upon that, the greatest sequence in this game, and probably the entire franchise, commences, so Please excuse me if I just include it in its entirety.
Ominous. But probably fine, as long as it doesn't start, moving up. Now. Escape pod. It's moving up. Okay, no, don't worry. I've got it. This should slow it down. No, makes it go faster. Uh-oh.
Power up initiated.
Okay, don't panic. All right, stop panicking. I can still stop this. Oh, there's a password. Okay, it's fine. I'll just hack it. Not a problem. C. Wait, did I do B? Do you have a pen? Start writing these down.
Power up complete.
I don't. Okay. Listen. All right, new plan. Act natural. You've done nothing wrong. Hello.
Oh, it's you.
You know her?
It's been a long time. How have you been? I've been really busy being dead. You know, after you murdered me.
You did what? Oh no! No! Oh no!
Okay, look, we both said a lot of things that you're going to regret. But I think we can put our differences behind us. For science, you monster. I will say, though, that since you went to all the trouble of waking me up, you must really, really love to test. I love it too. There's just one small thing we need to take care of first.
This scene is so fucking cool. GLaDOS waking up, Wheatley finding out that we are the human who killed GLaDOS, and then being dumped down the chute to land under the facility that still looks as broken, only held together by hopes and dreams. It's so good. If you still haven't played Portal 2 despite having seen this just now, I don't know how to sell you on the game. Look at how astounding this environment looks. Look at it! This is 2011! Anyway, we now get the full GLaDOS treatment. Now that we killed her, she doesn't have to hide how much she hates us and comes up with all sorts of funny and cynical things to say.
Sorry about the mess. I've really let the place go since you killed me. By the way, thanks for that.
Sarcasm self-test complete.
Oh good, that's back online.
Sure, I miss Wheatley, but damn, these voice lines are funny in a very different way. Yeah, how about we go back to praising the voice actors, you dumb shit. I don't know if you can hear it, but due to us breaking her and corrupting the original core, GLaDOS sounds a lot more human. Compare these voice lines to the first game and you can hear a, in my opinion, subtle but really cool difference.
Perfect. Please move quickly to the chamber lock, as the effects of prolonged exposure to the button are not part of this test. This next test involves discouragement redirection cubes. I just finished building them before you had your, well, episode. So now we'll both get to see how they work.
The loading screen changes from images of the abandoned facility to the logo of Aperture Science, and we enter a new part of this game. We were just trying to get through chambers to get out, but now GLaDOS is back in control and the testing has returned. The chambers feature a new item with these cubes that lets us reflect the lasers, and probably most notably, the testing rooms are broken down and you can see them constantly trying to fix themselves. The environmental storytelling in this game is amazing. Walking into a chamber and seeing GLaDOS arrange it to actually work is a spectacle and makes it feel so alive. It genuinely feels like it's not getting fixed for you and happens completely aside from whatever you're doing. There are several jokes about GLaDOS calling Chell fat, and I don't think they aged that bad, to be fair. Luckily, we live in a time and age where whoever puts what on the scale is not as important anymore. However, these jokes are just funny and over the top enough to feel cynical in a funny manner. I mean, they're clearly written to be evil, so it doesn't feel that mean. That makes sense.
Most people emerge from suspension terribly undernourished. I want to congratulate you on beating the odds and somehow managing to pack on a few pounds.
This is also when I realized that making a video like this is really dumb because I kind of want to put all the dialogue ever in the video. But then everyone would just watch the video and call me an idiot. Nobody would like me. Nobody would actually watch the video. Nobody would. Really, there's so many funny lines, but I fear that if I let the voices win, more than half of this video will just be Portal 2 gameplay with me occasionally giggling at the lines. I'm not a reaction YouTuber. Yet. A couple chambers later and we finally get the companion cube back. The companion cube.
Oh.
No!
Accidentally fizzle that before you could complete the test. I'm sorry.
There's a cool Easter egg here where you can smuggle out the companion cube before GLaDOS kills it anyway. Sure, they pointed out a little too much, but I still think it's a really cool little detail. It doesn't do anything, but it's the little things. Don't ever let anyone tell you that size matters. We find Wheatley again, but can't talk for long with him. I reiterate that it feels so exciting to see this character again and feeling that spark of hope as you see him. The trampolines are, by the way, yet another new addition to these chambers. They're used... I mean, what else would a trampoline be used for, really? But in this moment, to make you bounce up so you can talk to Wheatley and only hear bits and parts of this like conversation he has with you. It's not the most original idea, but I think it's really funny, and the trampolines themselves are really fun. I mean, what would a trampoline really do? But they make for fun puzzles, you'll see. The next chamber introduces a new element again, and I'm so grateful for that, really. It feels so fresh and at the same time familiar, while none of the new ideas feel like they don't make sense for the portal idea. Sure, the bridges can be cheesed and sometimes are a little wonky. Huh? What? Fuck off. But overall, they're a cool addition. Wheatley comes back after GLaDOS is gone, before getting scared away by a bird. Maybe he's also just useless. After a ceiling panel breaks off, we find another one of these hideouts. The same person was here as well, drawing Chell as if they were obsessed with her, asking who she is. The chambers continue. Fuck. And to once again put focus on the fact that the facility has been broken down, we can walk on this like catwalk and see a chamber from underneath. Totally unneeded, but a really cool detail that is only possible because of the setup. And after we peacefully maneuver around the turrets and face a new gameplay element, seriously, this game does more than Portal 1 already, and it's all really fun. We find another strange but cool Easter egg. After making this little fella explode with a laser, we enter a room where this portrait drawing person must have lived once more, and accompanying them here was a squad of singing turrets. I have no idea why they're here or what prompted them to sing. I don't know if there is a deeper meaning here, it's just fascinating. A few rooms later and we finally see Wheatley again. He tells us to stick around for 5 more chambers, and I don't want to repeat myself that often, but I always get this feeling of, yes, let's do it, with him. God, it feels like I'm playing an action movie. It's so cool. In the middle of the test, suddenly everything shuts down and Wheatley opens the door to another escape sequence, and man, it never gets old, I tell you. We run past obstacles with the help of these bridges, escape through the facility, and listen to Wheatley's plan of shutting down her turrets, her neurotoxin, and then confront her. Yeah, this part is amazing, and somehow it's not the best one. It comes real close though, as we jump through the darkness only illuminated by Wheatley. We jump over production lines with the turrets that go towards redemption, which just seems like burning them to a crisp. There's this cute Easter egg where you can pick up a still functioning turret speaking to you and thanking you for saving him, which is so adorable.
I've only had Arlo for a day and a half, but if anything happened to him, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself.
No! My sins won't be forgiven, I fear. We find a control center that filters out the defect turrets from the functioning ones. I don't fully get it though, the non-functioning ones sound a lot more chill to be around. We replace the model one with a faulty turret in a really clever scene, and after proceeding further to break GLaDOS neurotoxin, we pass a couple of children's projects with a baking soda volcano, potato battery, and speaking of it, there's a potato battery growing through the ceiling made by Chell. Yeah, well, that's a weird coincidence. We reach the neurotoxin tank, and aside from looking impressive, this is probably one of the longest yapping sessions Wheatley's gonna have. Seriously, it's really funny that they gave this man the script and let him talk for like 2 minutes? 3 minutes? I love it and I wish I could show it all, but have I said you should play Portal 2 on your own? We use this random ass laser to cut through the tubes, fueling the neurotoxin, which leads to this amazing scene of the tank crashing down the facility, which isn't a cutscene again. This all is just in the game and it looks extremely good for being just a decade old.
Hold on.
Warning. Neurotoxin pressure has reached dangerously unlethal levels.
The tube's broken! We could ride it straight to her! I can't hold on! Come on! Come on, we have to go! Hurry!
We travel through the tubes in what once again isn't a cutscene. Seriously, nowadays I feel like there's a lot of emphasis on making a game look as cinematic as possible and entering a lot of cutscenes that look really good, but there's a certain charm to being in these animated environments and also able to look around and just see everything, being afraid that you might miss something if you don't look there and there in time. I mean, yeah, there isn't anything crazy going on, but just having the feeling of being in there is enough to make it an amazing cutscene. When it isn't really a cutscene. This basically is the start of maybe the coolest part of the game. Maybe I would call the coolest part when you first activate GLaDOS or something that happens later in the game. It depends on when you ask me, but for now I might want to settle on this being the coolest part. We fall for a very obvious trap, and as we slowly get transported to GLaDOS, we see a new version of her somehow. This is the iconic GLaDOS look, and I love it a lot. I actually thought of this myself and then got confirmed by the internet, but from the side, GLaDOS looks like a tied up woman suspended from the ceiling and forced to maintain the same but painful looking stance. I know we reached a time where BDSM and sex is very popular, but I mean this in a really unkinky way, okay? Just, okay, please don't. GLaDOS looks like a tied up woman and I love the symbolism here. It works perfectly into her character arc. She tries to use the turrets and neurotoxin, and since both of that fails, we get out and can place Wheatley in place of her. This would switch them and put Wheatley in control, which is exactly what we want. I thought about it more. No, I don't think we want Wheatley in control of anything actually. And even in a tense moment like this, the game is really hilarious. I mean, I'm sorry, but my god.
Stalemate detected. Transfer procedure cannot continue.
Yes.
Pull me out! Pull me
Unless
out!
a stalemate associate is present to press the stalemate resolution button.
Pull me out! Leave me in! Leave me in! Press it!
We click a button and their consciousnesses, that sounds awful. Is there no better way for, like, the plural of consciousness? Their fucking, like, minds are swapped and Wheatley lets us out. That would essentially make Portal 2 a little longer than the first one. But I did tell you that my favorite part in the game comes later, so why is it not over?
This body's amazing, seriously. I can't get over how small you are, but I'm huge. Actually, why do we have to leave right now?
This reveal is spectacular, fantastic, whatever you want to call it. Wheatley getting corrupted by the sudden power he holds, leading him to be bathed in this red light from underneath him. It's an amazing scene. The looks, the way the voice actor does his job, the general reveal, it's really perfect. I don't know what more you could want. The first time you don't see this coming until just a few seconds before it's actually happening. The little goober that you've been carrying around throughout the entire game is now essentially another GLaDOS. Oh, and speaking of her, she thinks now is a good time to provoke Wheatley, and when that mysteriously enough is not a good idea, she gets... Okay, listen to this, right? It's the funniest shit I've ever seen. She reveals that Wheatley isn't just a normal AI that just runs around the facility, but a core made to specifically dumb down GLaDOS and stop her from becoming too powerful. Saying this obviously pisses off Wheatley, who proceeds to blame us for being selfish. Maybe he's also the gaslighting core. And then he punches us in the pit. A moron could do that. We fall, and after another funny interaction with GLaDOS...
Oh, hi. So, how are you holding up? Because I'm a potato. Oh, good. My slow processor made it into this thing. So we have that.
We land at the very depths of Aperture Science. Well, it's not the very depths, but there's essentially an old facility under the new one. No, we're not running the intro. A crow carries potato gliders off, and this starts such an amazing section of the game. We can explore ruins, the past of Aperture, and have to maneuver through the environment with just our portal gun. Seriously, it's super difficult for me to say how it really feels without having you play the game. All I could say would not properly explain to anyone how this feels. The keep out signs, the soft humming of the long forgotten machines in the back, the feeling of loneliness. Because even though you've always kind of been on your own in the first game, nobody's talking to you here. You don't have Wheatley to give you company, GLaDOS isn't a potato, and besides those two, you've always just been in silence. How do I not make a backroom reference here? Still, the environment doesn't fail to at least be slightly funny. The huge vault opens after a clever little play with portals and reveals a small, really normal door. I don't know why this little gag always kinda gets me, but it's funny. And besides being a funny joke, it also already hints at what the facility's whole deal was. I'm not trying to be an English teacher, reading between the lines very meticulously, but I think there was an intention here. But who's the person in charge of this place? Whose ego would be so big as to create stuff like this? What genius mind created a facility that thinks with portals?
To Aperture Science. Astronauts, war heroes, Olympians, you're here because we want the best. And you are it. So, who is ready to make some science?
I am.
Now, you already met one another on the limo ride over, so let me introduce myself. I'm Cave Johnson. I own the place. That eager voice you heard is the lovely Carolyn, my assistant. Rest assured, she has transferred your honorarium to the charitable organization of your choice. Isn't that right, Carolyn?
Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson.
She's the backbone of this facility. Pretty as a postcard, too. Sorry, fellas. She's married. To science.
This is Cave Johnson, voiced by the fantastic J.K. Simmons, most famously known for... I mean, wait, what isn't he known for? Like J. Jonah Jameson, Omni-Man, he's the evil guy in Kung Fu Panda 3. Man's kind of everywhere. You've at least heard him or seen him once. And for good reason. This guy is amazing in pretty much everything he is in. We hear another voice apparently belonging to a woman called Carolyn, who acts as his assistant. These two will be the only voices accompanying us until we reach the top of the facility again, so you better get used to them. I remember that when I first played this game, I was somehow missing that these are pre-recorded messages and thought that Cave Johnson was still talking to us. Cave Johnson is dead. Don't be dumb like me. I was like 14, okay? Excuse me. Oh my god, I was 14. In any case, this introduces a character type I'd probably call a sympathetic piece of shit. It's the same character type that Grunkle Stan from Gravity Falls would classify as.
You landed on Cash Flood! I'm giving none of this to charity!
Through some of the world building around the facility and voice lines from the man, you can tell this guy isn't particularly, nice.
That's a billion little gizmos that are going to travel into your bloodstream and pump experimental genes and RNA molecules and so forth into your tumors. Now, maybe you don't have any tumors. Well, don't worry. If you sat on a folding chair in the lobby and weren't wearing lead underpants, we took care of that too.
But he's really likable in that way. Because it's funny. He's such an unapologetic asshole that you can't help but shake your head and think to yourself, how did this man even make it this far? For now, he showers himself in his success and is anything but afraid to let his success be known to the player. We learn that this old facility had been used for all kinds of people, but mainly real professionals like astronauts and other scientists. So, is Shell one of those professions? I mean, why else would Shell be here? Right? We make our way towards a so-called repulsion gel test, which will add a whole new element to the puzzle in this game. It's repulsion gel, like the new element. I don't know why I'm being like secretive here. I just told you. The gel was originally supposed to be pudding, and after people figured out that it bounced in someone's stomach, it was used for tests. Look, I know I've said this about every other new element in this game already, but this one won't be an exception. It's really fun, and it's really clever, and it's really cool. It doesn't feel out of place. I don't know how to say it, but it makes perfect sense for these things to be here. Having bouncy gel is such a natural mechanic, and I really love how this game doesn't make you feel estranged by its new ideas. All you've known so far were the white, dreary chambers that still didn't all feel too connected with each other. These test chambers give you a vintage feeling, and you feel like you got stuck in a time that seems so distant. It's hard to grasp that it's underneath the new building. Even the cubes look so vastly different and aren't at all the slick and modern design anymore. This break in atmosphere, I mean, you can probably guess what adjective I would use to describe it. We solve some tests and I run into the same trouble I've had all game. How much do I include here without being a reaction channel, essentially? So many of these lines are fucking hilarious and either get me to smile or laugh out loud.
Those of you who volunteered to be injected with praying mantis DNA, I've got some good news and some bad news. Bad news is we're postponing those tests indefinitely. Good news is we've got a much better test for you. Fighting an army of mantis men. Pick up a rifle and follow the yellow line. You'll know when the test starts.
It's crazy that this facility didn't die down like this. Right? Cave Johnson and Carolyn say bye to us over the recorded messages and we find ourselves facing a boarded off exit. The only way further is by reaching a faraway gateway which allows us to turn on a second gel, an orange one. We won't know what it is yet, and when we make our way further, something weird happens. The starting section we are in now almost perfectly mirrors the starting section at the beginning of the part of the game. The voice messages kick in and Walt Cave Johnson. It feels weird and disrespectful not to full name him. Is that just me? Doesn't sound any different. He drops some lore on us. Apparently, Black Mesa, the Half-Life corporation if you remember, has stolen several inventions from Aperture Science. This led to the facility going bankrupt, or at least fall into a difficult debt. The sentiment of "we want the best and only the best" has quickly been forgotten and replaced with people that apparently were found on park benches. His demeanor has always been sort of toxic and he was always looking down on his subjects, but here he treats them as if they were animals. People with no manners. So it's clear, the best and only the best astronauts and scientists and whatnot, all of this is not a thing anymore. Instead, they're probably looking for homeless people. It's a far cry from what was once the great Aperture Science, and this is the start of a really heavy downfall that it would never quite recover from. Also looking around the place, we see a little bird picking away at something. Can you guess what's about to happen?
Oh, hi. Say, you're good at murder. Could you, murder this bird for me? Oh. Oh, thanks. Did you feel that? That idiot doesn't know what he's doing up there. This whole place is going to explode in a few hours if somebody doesn't disconnect him. I can't move, and unless you're planning to saw your own head off and wedge it into my old body, you're going to need me to replace him. We're at an impasse. So what do you say? You carry me up to him and put me back into my body, and I stop us from blowing up and let you go. No tricks. This potato only generates 1.1 volts of electricity. I literally do not have the energy to lie to you. Even if I am lying, what do you have to lose? You're going to die either way. Look, I don't like this any more than you do. In fact, I like it less because I'm the one who got partially eaten by a bird.
This is a pretty funny part of the game where we now carry GLaDOS around with us as a potato. And while it's actually a hilarious idea, it's also really cool. The thing that we had been fighting in Portal 1 and at the start of Portal 2 is now our ally in the weakest form we've ever seen her. We now have the shared goal of stopping Wheatley, something that I never ever would have predicted at the beginning of the game. I will let you in on a secret. Originally, this video was going to be about the gaming's best line or something along the lines of that. I didn't originally plan to make an entire video about Portal 2 being the perfect video game, but after long consideration I realized that it definitely deserves that title, and it's also a lot more interesting than the best line in video gaming. I mean, you get it, you clicked on it. I'm telling you this because the line that's coming up has always been stuck with me. I have been thinking about it a lot, and maybe you already picked up on some of the things they said in this video. Maybe you knew about this reveal. Maybe, I don't know, you were wondering why I didn't tell you who was voicing Carolyn in this game. But...
Did anything happen while I was out?
The testing area is just up ahead. The quicker you get through, the quicker you'll get your $60.
Hold on.
Carolyn, are the compensation vouchers ready?
Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson. Boy, did I just... Who is that? What the hell is going on?
That's so cool. That's so cool. This line is absolutely genius to me. The voice difference between Carolyn and GLaDOS is noticeable, but because you barely hear her and don't think of it, it's a huge surprise when it eventually gets revealed. Getting GLaDOS to hear these voice messages also isn't forced or anything. This natural progression of the computer being confronted with her own past that directly ties into the past of Aperture Science. Oh, it's so smart! And the implications of this are wonderful. Disturbing, but intriguing. When we first hear from Cave Johnson, he mentioned that Carolyn is...
She's married to science.
She is the person he trusts most, and she is as loyal as she is devoted. So devoted, apparently, that she gives up her own conscience to be inserted into a machine. Despite this being Aperture's desperate attempt to revolutionize science, something clearly went horribly wrong. The new gel added is orange, and walking over it increases your speed in no time.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Just like the blue gel, it's a super fun addition to the game's puzzles and feels extremely natural, especially when you combine the two gels to create puzzles like in this chamber. I've said before that the puzzles are nice because you get rewarded with story, but this part of the game especially has the most fun puzzles in the entire game. To reflect this next jump in time, the logo changes again. Seeing the typewriters change into computers, seeing the offices become more modern, and hearing how Cave Johnson talks to his test subjects, it all should be in a masterclass on how to write a history in a game, really. We end this section of the game with a sentiment that is fundamentally different. What had once been a cheerful voice is now filled with disgust and little care for the test subjects. We have once again been confronted with a blocked off exit, which means we take yet another step deeper into the history of Aperture science. Before we flip another level, GLaDOS seems to not fully get it yet. I like to believe she's in denial about this because we as the gamer have fully figured out that GLaDOS and Carolyn are the same person. We flip another switch that now activates a white gel. Please, I encourage you to make a cum joke here. That would be very original.
Me when your mom... yeah.
The white gel is maybe the only element of this game I would call a tiny bit off. The blue and orange gel serve to change the way we solve puzzles, whilst the white gel more focuses on changing the way we place portals. Whatever gets coated in the white gel makes it possible to have a portal placed upon it. That still is a really cool idea, it just doesn't feel as interactive with the puzzles, because in most cases it's just smarter to coat everything in white gel. There's not really a downside to it. It's like trial and error without the error. Again, I call this game perfect, so it's not a big problem, but it's probably my least favorite addition to the puzzle solving. We go further and now it's more apparent than ever. GLaDOS, probably having been confronted with the reality of Carolyn, is more human. Just listen to the way she suddenly compliments Chell on how she's doing, or how she reacts to the bird.
Oh my god. Look, you're doing a great job. Can you handle things for yourself for a while? I need to think. It's evil. It flew off.
Normal emotions for a normal human, but a far cry from the stoic and monotone GLaDOS we have known so far. We hear Cave Johnson again and experience the downfall of the Aperture Science Enrichment Center. He's coughing up a storm, saying that he's become deathly ill and the new test subjects are the same scientists working on the portals. That's right, as scary as it may sound, they ran out of test subjects and are now using their own employees to test these chambers, otherwise you won't stay at work. There's hope on the horizon, however, as he mentions that human subjects will soon be replaced. More on that later. The last bit of info we get dumped on is that the white gel is made from the moon rocks that gave Cave Johnson his illness. I wonder if that may lead to the coolest scene of the game. After solving another test, the game finally drops it on us. The lemon speech.
Alright, I've been thinking. When life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Make life take the lemons back. Get mad! I don't want your damn lemons! What am I supposed to do with these?
Take the lemons.
Demand to see life's manager. Make life rue the day it thought it could give Cave Johnson lemons. Do you know who I am? I'm the man who's gonna burn your house down with the lemons. I'm gonna get my engineers to invent a combustible lemon that burns your house down.
Burn his house down. Burning people. He says what we're all thinking.
The point is, if we can store music on a compact disc, why can't we store a man's intelligence and personality on one? So I have the engineers figuring that out now. Brain mapping, artificial intelligence. We should have been working on it 30 years ago. I will say this, and I'm gonna say it on tape so everybody hears it 100 times a day. If I die before you people can pour me into a computer, I want Carolyn to run this place. Now she'll argue. She'll say she can't. She's modest like that, but you make her. Hell, put her in my computer, I don't care. All right, test's over. You can head on back to your desk.
Goodbye, sir.
Honestly, I think the Lemon speech is a very, very good example of Portal 2 handling serious and funny at the same time. The whole speech is really funny, with Cave Johnson making this idiom or metaphor about someone giving you lemons into burning houses down. That's really funny and fits perfectly into his character, but it ends with that serious topic of him being about to die and Carolyn having to be put into this GLaDOS computer. At the same time, you carry GLaDOS, or well, Carolyn at this point, around, and you can genuinely hear the sorrow in her voice as she says goodbye to her boss one last time. It is an amazing speech, and you can probably see why it has the internet fame, well, that it has. GLaDOS is letting out her human side more and more. Carolyn will take charge of everything if he were to die, and slowly we are getting the full picture of everything that's been going on. The testing is over already. I'd like to think that's because the volunteering test subjects were normal scientists that needed to work on other stuff as well. Luckily for us, the elevator is not blocked off. Sure, it's not working, but we can easily portal our way up now. GLaDOS comes up with the idea to paradox our way to break Wheatley. We enter an extremely cool cutscene that is once again entirely rendered in the game engine. The huge vault opens and the pipes descend from the ceiling to pump the gel we learn to love in this section into the upper sections of Aperture Science. A lift descends and we finally see those new and improved elevators. This is it. We are about to confront Wheatley. Chapter 8, yes, this game has chapters, I just don't know why I never mentioned them. But Chapter 8 is called The Itch, and I love this concept a lot. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. GLaDOS does her little paradox, but in a genuinely really funny idea, Wheatley's too dumb to understand the paradoxes and thus they don't work.
True. I'll go true. Yeah, that was easy. I'll be honest, I might have heard that one before though, sort of cheating.
He's happy to see us though and introduces us to his new tests. And it's important for him to do these tests because according to him, he gets a sort of itch when he doesn't test. This man has such stupid fucking ideas that he combined the turrets and the cubes and it just ends up looking like an abomination only a Wheatley could love. The test basically solves itself, and after we solve the same test again, because Wheatley doesn't have any other tests, he simply reuses the tests that GLaDOS has still stored away in the facility. They use the last new element of the game, these anti-gravity pushing beams. Yeah. This might be my favorite new mechanic. It's really fun thinking with these things as they move you through the air and push you back and forth. Letting cubes travel through the beams to make them get pushed against buttons, and when later all these elements will come together, it will be a spectacle. How often have I used this stupid word already? Also, this is when the loading screen changes again. I love how the Wheatley is just plastered over the Aperture word. There's so much charm. There's so much love in the idea of making a custom loading screen to translate someone's inability to... We solve a couple more tests as Wheatley squeezes and presses chambers together. I reiterate that this game looks stunning. Again, the way the entire facility breaks down and you can see the debris fall from the ceiling, it's so difficult not to feel like you're right there in Shell's boots. GLaDOS senses something terrible is happening as Wheatley seems to be less and less satisfied with the solving of the tests. He brings us closer to where he currently is, while his dissatisfaction with our puzzle solving skills grows stronger and stronger. Apparently there's a euphoria response built into the body which the core can grow resistant to. GLaDOS was in this body for science, which implies that she was very willingly in this body, which is just so dystopian and it's kind of scary but also really cool. Wheatley, however, has no further goal and is therefore very susceptible to the itch. The lift breaks down and after a little sequence to get us back into the test chamber, Wheatley sounds a little different. He went poking around for other test subjects and despite claiming there aren't any others, we can see an orange robot running away as Wheatley opens an exit for us. I wonder who that was. Wheatley makes several references to killing us and after a very long consideration, that's probably bad news.
Sorry, my fault. Matcha fingers.
In a really cool scene, we are led to believe that there are 2 more tests, and as we step into the first trampoline, we suddenly get shoved off towards probably the funniest moment in the game.
Well, this is the part where he kills us.
Hello! This is the part where I kill you.
I mean, yeah, picking the funniest moment in this game is kind of like picking your favorite game, but this entire setup is done so well. Oh, you've probably seen it before. The fact that even the OST for this is called The Part Where He Kills You, and you get an achievement called The Part Where He Kills You, that's peak comedy. I don't care what anyone else is saying. Also, and I don't think a lot of games do this, but when you actually come back, there are several lines of dialogue only about him trying to coax you to jump into your own death.
Oh, you came back. I didn't plan for this. Can't reset the death trap. Oh, could you just jump into that pit? Would you just jump into that pit for me?
If you do, you'll hear a line of dialogue before eventually resetting to just before the scene.
Oh, wow, good. I didn't think that was gonna work.
This care and attention to detail are just a cherry on top of this delicious ice cream of a game. That sounded less cool than when I actually wrote it down. We start yet another chase sequence that's less intense and more really funny because of Wheatley.
Yes, in your face. I got Holmes versus Moriarty. Aristotle versus Mashy Spike Plates.
We can now use the gels for the escape, which is amazing, and all the 3 escape sequences use the elements previously established. This is like a Nintendo boss fight. As we insert GLaDOS into the potato spinner, we get driven up to the elevator that we wrote at the beginning of the game. We find ourselves face to face with the killing AI of this facility. However, its face has been altered. The Wheatley boss fight consists of throwing bombs at him, which lets GLaDOS carry in a corrupted core that we can attach to Wheatley's body. It's essentially a more structured and more engaging version of the first time we fought GLaDOS, especially because Wheatley sort of looks like the first GLaDOS design. After we attach 3 cores, the computer once again asks for us to press a button which will let GLaDOS back in control. However, it seems Wheatley has decided to be smart once in his life and trapped the button, which sends us plummeting down the floor, barely alive, looking up towards the sky. And maybe this will be the coolest moment of the game. We look up to the ceiling as it breaks off, the facility all about to explode, and what we see is the moon.
Bloody cat and mouse, didn't you? While people were trying to work. Yeah, well now we're all gonna pay the price, because we're all gonna bloody die.
In a scene I still have never seen to be matched in surprise and epicness, can't believe I said this out loud, we open a portal on the moon which sucks up all the facility and leaves us almost stranded on the moon. You see Earth from the moon. You are on... Tell me this isn't cool. Tell me this isn't cool. If you just said this isn't cool, you're a fucking liar. Wheatley gets bonked away by GLaDOS before we get pulled inside. We are woken up by Peabody and Atlas confronting GLaDOS face to face, and for once we aren't enemies. The scene is a fantastic end for the game. GLaDOS having gotten a heart and becoming soft because of Carolyn inside her.
Carolyn deleted.
Goodbye, Carolyn.
Dude, it gives me chills. GLaDOS' voice changes to a stoic, more robotic one as she deletes the human side that had been inside her. I mean, I said this before, but her voice actress does the switch so seamlessly while also giving it such a difference that it's outstanding work.
I thought you were my greatest enemy, when all along you were my best friend. The best solution to a problem is usually the easiest one. And I'll be honest, killing you is hard.
GLaDOS gives up on killing us and lifts us out the facility. Finally, after a long and difficult journey, we are allowed outside into a large cornfield. Who knows how much time passed, where humanity is, and what the future will bring. All we know is we don't have to take it on alone. And that's it. The game ends with a song somehow even better than Still Alive, with actually really sad lines about Carolyn and how GLaDOS will inevitably miss Chell.
I don't need anyone now. When I delete you, maybe I'll start feeling so bad.
This stuff really enough always gets me sad, because we always spend so much time hating each other that hearing her not wanting to delete Chell feels so bittersweet, so human, even though she deleted that side of her. Oh, and speaking of sad, we cut to Wheatley floating through space as he shows remorse for what he had done. It's a really sad ending, seeing this cute sphere accidentally getting corrupted and doing these evil deeds. Now that he's disconnected, he reverts to being the normal old Wheatley, and he won't have a further chance to be redeemed since this is
the end.
Now, technically, that's not where Portal 2 ends. Portal 2 has a multiplayer that is just as great as the base game. There's not much for me to say, because all I would compliment about it is what I kind of already said about the base game. The only downside is that you need a friend, which, who has these? Easily confused. Honey? Honey? Honey! Playing through it will reward you with a cutscene that shows how Peabody and Atlas have accessed parts of the facility GLaDOS wasn't allowed in. These feature hundreds or thousands of human test subjects. In the DLC following this co-op adventure, GLaDOS reveals all these people died, and we are here to save GLaDOS from the bird having put up a nest on her old hardware.
We are not 100,000 years in the future. I lied about that. It's been 50,000 years. No, it hasn't. I lie when I'm nervous. It's only been a week. The next logical question. Why am I nervous? I'm not. That was another lie. We're in a lot of trouble.
Again, this is mostly just fun and doesn't do much for the actual game. All I can say is the multiplayer is just a base game, but with 2 people and more GLaDOS greatness. The puzzles are engaging and more difficult due to having 4 different portals available. Just like the base game, I can only recommend playing it because it's really fun. And this concludes what I would consider the perfect video game. The story, the art, the graphics, the game itself, the puzzles, the story, the voice acting. And once you dig a little deeper, there's even more to be found. In Portal 1 you can find all these hidden chambers with messages scribbled on them and an art style that seriously resembles the art drawn over the walls of the beginning of Portal 2. Who drew these? Well, on thingwithportals.com you can find a comic titled Lab Rat that plays between the first and the second game. It's a really quick read and I recommend looking at it yourself, but it's the story of a lone scientist with what appears to be schizophrenia. He has run out of the normal pills and the companion cube gives him directions to where he needs to go through the facility. We learn that after Chell fell asleep for the first time, he was the one activating her life support, which is the reason why, despite every other human having died in these stations, Chell is still alive. We even see him drawing the Chell painting in the beginning of this comic. Unfortunately, during the end of the comic, he gets shot by a turret and crawls to rest in the part that Chell awoken in the first game, which he most likely passes away in due to his gun wounds. Now there just being a little comic drawn by the creators just to illustrate what happens between the first and second game and explaining some of the conveniences is already amazing. You didn't need to do it, but it just adds to the perfection. And yet there's even more. Because why Chell? Why out of all humans did he save Chell? Chell is weird as hell. She's a selective mute that somehow found her way at Apertures, and what this comic revealed to us is Chell isn't here because she was forced to, because her parents donated her to the facility. No, she's here on her own volition. Chell, at some point in her life, had applied to work as a test subject. She had probably been introduced to this facility through the Bring Your Daughter to Work Day, in which she had worked on a potato battery that eventually grew huge and broke the ceiling. Media literacy enjoyers, this one is for you. Now, because of her selective muteness, we don't know shit about this woman. We know her face and her ethnicity, but that's sort of it. So her backstory needs to be told to us through other means. Other characters. There are dozens of videos about who Chell is and what her backstory entails, so I'll try not to bore you too much. I mean, I haven't watched any of them because I feel like that would be cheating, but I also don't want to retell a video you probably already seen. So what do other characters and media tell us about Chell? Well, she's been at Aperture when she was a child, which most likely would be the first time she's ever heard of Aperture. However, after some digging through the textures in this game, you can find a high-res version of the writing on that project that Chell's name was on. There's a few interesting things on the board, so let's go through them. First of all, it's interesting to see that Chell refers to Cave Johnson as Mr. Johnson, and how she writes about her father also referring to him as Mr. Johnson. Now, I know, you're thinking this is normal behavior. A child would probably call an adult Mr., and if that's a really important CEO, you would as an adult also call him Mr. However, the starting part changes a few things. My dad said somebody at the cafeteria ordered too many potatoes, so everybody has to do a science project on potatoes now for Take Your Daughter to Work Day. This doesn't sound like something some random ass kid's dad would know about, right? I mean, sure, maybe they outright admitted it, But Aperture Science has never really been one to admit their faults, especially not to strangers. This rather sounds like Chell's dad has insider knowledge, as if Chell's father is Cave John. No. I know there are some people who really want to believe that Cave Johnson and Carolyn are the parents of Chell, but can we not do this? That's a really fucking dumb theory. In this text, Chell already speaks of these two as different people, like she's saying Mr. Johnson and her dad, they're two different people. Rather, I believe that maybe Chell's dad was an employee at Aperture Science. Do not roll the game theory intro. He worked there and, well, took his daughter to work. Why does this matter though? Well, the scientist or worker or whatever isn't actually Chell's dad. Yeah, he is. However, the game makes it very apparent that Chell is adopted. GLaDOS makes several references to Chell being adopted, and now I hear you. You might say, well, but GLaDOS is clearly just trying to fuck you over and being mean to you. However, and now listen to this. First of all, GLaDOS is always known to poke at someone's insecurities. She's doing it with Ratman and keeps driving home the fact that he is definitely schizophrenic. She calls Wheatley a moron over and over again, knowing that it upsets him, so it isn't too far-fetched to think that GLaDOS might actually be right here. Chell might be adopted. But more importantly, there is a very specific detail that I feel like a lot of people might miss. As a potato, GLaDOS states,
This potato only generates 1.1 volts of electricity. I literally do not have the energy to lie to you.
so when confronting Wheatley, this interesting exchange happens.
What exactly is wrong with being adopted?
What's wrong with being adopted? Lack of parents.
For the record, you are adopted and that's terrible.
And
Just
also,
work with me.
nothing.
She isn't lying here, because as she said herself, she can't. Chell actually is adopted, most likely by an Aperture Science employee through whom she was introduced to Aperture Science in the first place. Now, where does all of this talk lead us? Why am I even bringing this up? Is this just a theory video now? I thought, hold up. It started with the Ratman comic, so let's return to it. Chell has applied to the facility as a test subject, filling out questions about whether or not she would be missed by anyone if she vanished. She doesn't answer the question, implying that there's nobody who would care about her. She's a loner, and in the Lab Rat comic, you can see she was pretty much at the bottom of the list for the test subjects. She wouldn't have been woken up at all if it wasn't for Ratman to shove her way all the way to the top. But why? Why did he do this? Why did he put all his faith and the hope for the future into Chell? What could possibly be so important about her that made him want her to be the first? There, on the last page, Chell has something that would be considered extraordinary. In comparison to everyone else, Chell possesses an iron will, determination. The note even states that Chell is abnormal in her stubbornness. She never gives up and is rejected due to it. Taking a look at her potato battery being the only one that didn't give up over time but instead broke the ceiling, you can tell this was always intended. She was nothing special and probably didn't do all that well at her tests or at the questions she was asked. Meant to be sealed away as one of the last test subjects. And if it wasn't for Ratman moving her up to the very top, she would most likely have died in this facility. Only because of this abnormality, Ratman, who's the only scientist alive and thus the only one able to access these codes, knew Chell could defeat GLaDOS. Which she eventually does. Twice, sort of. Only because of this, he activated her life support to keep her from rotting away. And now we reached the full story of what's actually going on in Portal 2. Chell gets born and is abandoned at probably not too young of an age. Her answers and attitudes seem very stoic, which might be a trauma reaction. However, that's speculation, nothing more. GLaDOS alludes to her being abandoned on the doorstep, which could be a lie, but probably isn't. An Aperture scientist takes in Chell. She gets to know the facility and Cave Johnson. She grows up a bit of a smartass, but most importantly ends up a selective mute. Not just speaking-wise, but also in written interviews. She gets a job, but because she isn't the best, she gets thrown to what essentially is the end of the list. Because nobody would miss her, they simply store her away. Meanwhile, Aperture loses the fight against time. What had once been a strong and important facility was nothing more than a shell, as it lost against Black Mesa. Cave Johnson, the founder of Aperture, dies, and his plan to be put into a supercomputer can never become reality. Instead, his secretary, Carolyn, gets put into the computer. The scientists are concerned with its power and intelligence and come up with cores that dump the computer down, which also brings forth the birth of Wheatley. However, the scientists are too cocky. Every time they turn on the machine, it tries to kill them in record time. And then one fated day, it works. Not for them, but for GLaDOS. Scientists get blasted with neurotoxin, shot by turrets, who knows what. The only survivor? Ratman. GLaDOS does her usual tricks of prying at a subject's weakness and drills it into Ratman's schizophrenia. This is the only reason he lived, as it kept him too suspicious of GLaDOS, as she asked for neurotoxin to create Schrödinger's cat. He moves Chell up to the top of the chain, while he continues living off of beans and water in the walls of the facility. These are the hideouts we can find in Portal 1 with the scribblings and warnings of GLaDOS. Portal 1 happens, Chell escapes it, and while Ratman draws portraits of her, he watches as she ascends to the surface, letting both of them escape. But sadly, this is not where it ends. As Ratman is about to escape back into society, he watches as an unconscious Chell gets dragged back into the facility, and despite his inner voice telling him to flee, he walks back inside to save her. This does not end well for him, however. As he stands to watch over the sunshine for the last time, he refuses to run and finds his way back. He finds Chell already in long-term relaxation. Her life support has given out now that the main grid exploded. As he gets shot and barely hangs on to consciousness, he rewires her life support to the reserve grid. But as he says, it's either a long sleep or the long sleep. Schrödinger's cat. Chell is alive and dead at the same time because she will never wake up. And as he does this last action, Ratman crawls to a pod, unknowing if Chell will ever wake up and rests for what probably is an eternal sleep. Luckily, he did the right thing.
Chell sleeps for a long time.
How long exactly, we never know. And it would have been even longer if it wasn't for a little sphere waking up Chell as the only survivor of this tragic story. And then Portal 2 transpires, defeating Wheatley, who, in a sad twist, brought his own undoing back to life. Defeating GLaDOS and then saving GLaDOS before she deletes her own human side, finally putting an end to this facility story. Or, well, it would be for the Chell part. She gets to walk out with the companion cube just how Ratman would have done it, exploring this new world and metaphorically stepping into his footsteps. The co-op focuses on using the abandoned part of the facility for the new tests and data. Since GLaDOS has been down there, she inherited an interest in the facility. Throughout the levels, Peabody and Atlas find these discs that uncover secret codes, grant access, and eventually let GLaDOS connect herself to the old facility. At the end of it all, she finds thousands of humans sealed away for testing. Upon finding them, the testing will begin once again, satisfying GLaDOS' itch. For a while, this is how the story ended. In October 2011, the peer review DLC came out that served to expand the co-op story slightly. In GLaDOS' attempt to find another human like Chell, she killed every single one of them in her test chambers. After all, we already cleared up that only Chell has this abnormal determination. Something attacked GLaDOS' mainframe, and after a few hard puzzles...
Well done.
We did it!
Oh my god, we did it.
Metaphors in record time. I'm
Record time.
We shoo away a bird sitting on top of GLaDOS' old body. The DLC concludes with GLaDOS now calling herself Mommy to the baby birds, which, enter your own porn joke here.
Mommy's got a big day for you tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I like that ending.
And then, that was it. It's a bit of a weird ending, but that's essentially Portal's story. It might be worth noting that in the cutscenes, GLaDOS sounds very human still.
Oh my god. It's the bird. Run! I had no plan for this. Abort! Forget your training. Run!
So either this plays between Chell being knocked out and woken up, which seems unlikely, or GLaDOS never fully deleted Carolyn after all. I guess that's up for interpretation. But that's it. Sure, there are other entries through VR and there's this bridge building Portal game, but for the main series, this is it. Now, why did I even recap this? Why did I tell you about Chell, the comic? Why do I go into so much detail about the voice acting, the story, and all of it? Well, it all feels perfect. And I know this is probably sounding like a meme, or we always love to call things 10 out of 10, but this, I genuinely believe, is a game without flaws. The theories you can make about the main character and all the environmental clues you're told. This little comic that tells you all the conveniences not really being conveniences. The voice acting being top notch. The puzzles being really fun. The graphics of it still holding up even to this date and still looking really impressive. The cutscenes honestly making you feel more engulfed in the actual game than all the other cinematics cutscenes could do. It's a 10 out of 10. Then there's the humor that also works so perfect. I mean, yeah, maybe you could criticize that you need to have played Portal 1 to fully grasp the story of its successor, but that's also a really dumb thing to say about a sequel. I mean, there's a 2 in the title. What, you're gonna not play the first one? And even then, Portal 2's story is told so elegantly that the first game isn't even a necessity. Often exposition is very much a hassle and feels unnatural, but in Portal 2 it's written with a good amount of humor through Wheatley and also makes a lot of sense because of how much time passed. Explaining why Chell woke up again while everyone is dead isn't necessary, but the comic itself is super cool. There's so much effort, so much love, so much charm, an ARG about Portal 2, a comic between games of it all, the backstory of Chell that is never directly explained to you. It makes for one of the most engaging stories, beautiful graphics and landscapes, phenomenal casting, and the option to make your own chambers in co-op. Apparently this is also what the game needed, your own chamber making part. You can even upload it. It's a workshop game. It's so good. If there's a game that I would want to call a clean 10 out of 10, yeah, this is it. Its predecessor is great, but this is what I would call the perfect video game. And honest to God, there are jokes about Valve not knowing how to count to 3, and I made them myself because they're very obvious. But to be honest, Portal 2 is such a beautiful end to the story and the franchise itself that the third part would either need to be the best game for the rest of time, or it would just flat out not be as great as the second one. I'm satisfied with Portal 2 as the end. Chell steps out to a field with wheat, meaning there's probably humans nearby, as wheat doesn't grow naturally like that. And besides, Chell is difficult to kill. I definitely believe she found her way around whatever obstacles were in her way. There's a really intricate fan game called Portal Stories Mel, which I always told myself I'd play eventually. For now, fan opinions are overwhelmingly positive, and it's probably the closest to Portal 3 we will ever be. So yeah, I don't really have a favorite video game. What about you?
You know what? I'm not doing this.
Maybe I should stop saying I'm a gamer. The owner of this channel agrees.
I think we broke Portal.
Yeah, probably.
Little black squash balls.
Hmm.
I'm so sorry. This is horrible commentary.